Hello and welcome to Hidden Existence. I've got a great show tonight and a great guest. I've got with me Jimmie Barr. Hello, Jimmie.
Hi, Danielle. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Great.
You have some interesting encounters to tell us about, and you're coming from sunny Florida at the moment, which looks amazing.
It is a beautiful day today.
I'm in a very dull part of England at the moment with lots of wind blowing.
I'm so sorry. I wish
And,
I could ship some of this to you. It's
yeah,
a sunny, warm, upper 80s, lower 90s day.
lovely.
Slight breeze, and
I'm
a little
jealous.
breeze coming in off the lake, so on poolside, so that makes it all better.
Yeah, and your alligator there. I saw a little. So Jimmie showed me his pet alligator, not his pet alligator, but a local alligator. That's his mate. But let's go back to you. And you were 7, and you were in Colorado. Sorry,
North Carolina.
I know I'm just not getting it right tonight.
No, North Carolina.
And your experience actually is on going to be on a series called These Woods Are Haunted, which is on the Travel Channel. And your episode will be going out on this Saturday at 9 p.m. And tell me about that experience.
Absolutely. When I was a kid, my mother and stepfather, and my stepfather was Native American. We moved around a lot. They kind of, I guess, at the time they were kind of digging the gypsy lifestyle, and so we moved around a lot. And it wasn't uncommon that we would be in 2, 3, sometimes even 4 schools a year, just because they'd anchor down for a couple months and then move along, and then just move along. And so we had left Illinois and drove straight through to North Carolina. And we sat in the back of this old El Camino. It was a beautiful El Camino. I think I remember it. It was just a car that I dreamt of having when I was a kid. But we drove straight through, got someplace in North Carolina. I don't know the location. Like I said, we moved around so many times that I don't know where we stayed half the time, or what state we were in, for that matter. And this was probably 39, 40 years ago. I was about 7 or 8 years old. And as soon as we got to the location where my stepfather had just purchased a trailer, it had barely got anchored. It didn't have any skirting. I'm not even sure the first day we were there that we had electricity hooked up. It was either hooked up that day or the following day. And as soon as we got out, me and my 2 older brothers were 2 years apart. And our feet hit the ground to stretch out. My stepfather, he turned to us and he said, "Stay out of the woods because there's a hairy man back there." And for us, that was more funny than anything, because as kids, 3 boys, we'd never heard those words together in the same sentence. So we kind of laughed. It was more of a joke to us.
So you'd never heard of Bigfoot before, or the Patterson film? You hadn't seen that or anything like that?
No, no, we didn't get really we didn't really have the luxury of TV much. Like I said, we were moving around a lot, so I think the only big thing, I was really into the Godzilla movies, those horrible Godzilla movies back in the day. So that was the only thing I was really interested in, and whenever I could see one of those, it was just the best day ever. So no, we never heard of the subject before. But that day that he said, don't go in the woods because there's hairy men back there, we laughed, we giggled, and then his response was, half-heartedly, "Well, I told you so," kind of thing. So we were supposed to help unload all the stuff from traveling and into the trailer, but as kids, first thing we did, being city boys, was just run around the trailer, picking up sticks, throwing them at each other, just doing kid stuff in a new place. So cut to about 3 weeks later, my stepfather and mother had been gone for 2 days. That was a regular occurrence. It was just us boys fending for ourselves with whatever was inside the house. And we're outside the trailer. And if people aren't familiar with a mobile home, this was a single wide mobile home. It was used, but it was brand new to us. So if you walk into the front door, you kind of come in the living room / kitchen. And if you take a immediate right, as soon as you walk in, you'll walk through the kitchen and go through a door that leads into my mother and stepfather's bedroom. And that was the end. It had the hitch on it. If you walked in the front door and walked straight ahead, hit the wall, took a left, you'd go down the hallway and you'd go right into our bedroom door, the other end of the trailer. Just outside our bedroom door to the right was the back door that led outside the back of the trailer. And then across the hall was my sister's bedroom and the bathroom. And I don't know where my sister was, because she just wasn't there. She was with us when we moved there, but she just wasn't there. That time we were alone. And so if you're standing in front of the trailer looking at it, to the right is the hitch in my mother's bedroom. The other end of the trailer is our bedroom on the other end. So this day, we're just running around from my mother's side to the left side, the right side of the trailer, going around the front to our end of the trailer, and running around the back, running clockwise. To the right was the hitch of the trailer. To the left was our bedroom at the end. We're just running around, chasing each other, throwing sticks at each other, swinging sticks at each other, just being out of control, unsupervised little boys. And as we were chasing each other and being chased, we were in front of the trailer, running towards the left of the trailer to run around to our end. And we heard this loud scream, and it sounded like, the only way I can describe it as a kid is it sounded like a woman being torn apart. Just one big blood curdling, really, really quick, really loud, ear piercing. And from that second, it stopped us in our tracks. We hadn't heard anything around there before. We went from chasing each other with sticks to all of us huddled in together, a real tight unit. And kind of without saying a word, we just all walked around the back of the trailer and kind of went in the direction where we had heard this thing scream. We got about 50 to 70 feet, 50, 75 feet from the back of our trailer, and there was this pine tree. It was probably less than a beach ball size around, probably more like between a beach ball and a basketball size around. And we got within an adult arm's length away from this tree. I couldn't reach out with it as a 7-year or 8-year-old. My hands were too short, but we were less than 5 feet away from this tree. And we had heard a crack up above us in this tree. So instantly we all look up. And when we look up, there was only thing I can describe it to you, because I had never seen anything like it before, not on TV, not anywhere else, only on TV. And what I could describe at the time was, it looked like something from the Planet of the Apes, the original Planet of the Apes, because nothing else matched. But when we looked up, it's had its left arm around the tree, holding on to it, and it was crouched down with its feet up against the trunk of the tree, the tree itself. So if you can imagine standing next to a flagpole with your arm fully extended, and then putting your feet up against the flagpole and crouching down, is how it was on the limb. When we looked up and then we made eye contact with it, it started to stand. And when it stood, the branch had broke that it was on, and it was about 15 feet up. Now, as a kid, the first thing that I thought was, anything that high is going to die falling. So when it started to fall, I instantly focused on the ground where it was going to land. I expected something to be broken, a broken leg, broken hip. I expected to see some kind of wounded thing on the ground. So I looked down, and as I looked down, I actually seen the branch that it was on come down and land just a split second before it did. But when it landed, its knees barely bent, almost like if you or I were to step off a curb. It just fell out of a tree 15 feet up, and it landed with its knees barely bent. It didn't go down to all fours. Not a hand even touched the ground. It was like you or I stepping off the curb. And for some reason, that was just super scary to me, because that was, looking back, that's like superhero stuff you see on TV nowadays. I didn't even remember its feet. Where I was looking at, I was just locked in on the knees. I was looking at a big picture of where it was going to land, because it came straight down, and its knees were barely bent. And then again, I looked up at it. We looked up at it, and it had this look. It when we made eye contact, its eyes, it had pupils, it had brown eyes, and you couldn't see any whites of its eyes. But when we made eye contact, it opened its eyes really wide, and then I could see the whites. It had this oh crap look on its face and its eyes. It didn't change its facial structure, but its face, it was black. It had hair, but it wasn't. It looked like, I don't know how to describe it. I haven't seen any other hair like it. The best way for me to describe it is, I don't know if you have seen the remake of Planet of the Apes with Mark Wahlberg and the main ape Caesar. It reminded me a ton of that, but it had much thicker hair, blacker hair. I could see the skin. The skin was a dark charcoal. Around the face, where the lips bubbled out just like a chimp, it was gray to right about here, where a guy's 5 o'clock shadow would be around its lips, and then it speckled in to flesh color, like our flesh color. So it was gray here, and it started speckling in and fading into like a white Caucasian flesh color. When we made the eye contact, we just turned around and booked it. It had us if it wanted us. We were 5 feet or less from it. I don't remember a smell. I don't remember any of that. I remember as soon as we looked up, it made that oh crap look. We took off and booked it. And that was, I always tell people, that was the day that I realized if I was going to survive in this family, I had to run faster, because my oldest brother smoked us, man. He beat us back to the trailer. He ran up the back steps, which were made out of cinder blocks. They were temporary steps to get to the back door. There was like 4 steps up of cinder blocks just stacked up. So we were running back. On the way back, about halfway, I just stopped to glance back. I didn't stop to glance back. I turned around to glance back, and it had stopped as soon as I looked back. It stopped in the exact step it was in. It was almost like once I looked at it again, it stopped. It followed us. It didn't run. It just meandered. I didn't feel like it was pursuing us. As a kid, it felt like we were going to get eaten, but in reality, it was just kind of like following us. It didn't gain any ground on us. But my brother had gotten back climbed up the steps, opened the door, and he locked the door on us. So when me and my older brother got there, pulled on it, and he just disappeared. My oldest brother just disappeared. I don't know where he went. Outside of our back door, there was an old freezer chest, a deep freezer chest. It was like an old ice cream freezer chest, and it had a plexiglass or glass top on it, and it was hazed like headlights on an older car. You know how they haze up and you can't really see through them. Mm-hmm. You can still see the light, but you can't really see through them. It was hazed like that, and my older brother, he thought he just did a quick thinking for a 9 or 10-year-old, opened up the freezer chest, put me in it, got in it, and shut it.
Wow.
I remember the smell. It was rusty. It was musty. There was nothing in it. a little bit of dirt. It smelled like rotten meat, but I'm sure it wasn't used for a long time. It just smelled like a crawl space of a house. It was just nasty smelling. But I remember my older brother put me freaking out. My older brother, I'm shaking. My older brother putting his hand in my mouth because I don't know if I would say anything. I just remember him putting his hand on my mouth. And it walked up to the freezer chest, and we looked up, and because we could see its silhouette, head and shoulders, looking at us. Not he couldn't see us. He couldn't see through it. We couldn't see at us. So I'm sure he couldn't see in it. I don't know if it was a he. Didn't have that long of a look to analyze it. It couldn't see us. We couldn't see him, but we could see its silhouette through the haze top. And it just did a big huff like a horse. If you've ever been around horses, they just kind of release a lot of air and their lips flap and just, it made a huff. And then the figure just went from looking down, it turned to its left, and it just kind of walked away. Where it went, I have no idea. We stayed in there what felt like hours, but I'm sure it was just a couple minutes. It got to a point to where it was so hot inside, it felt like we were suffocating. Whether we were or not, I don't know. As panicked as we were, we may have used up all the oxygen in there, or it just might have felt like we're trapped, we need to get out if we can, kind of thing. But my older brother just bust the top out, and when he bust the top out, I remember my oldest brother opening the door and saying, "Get in, get in, get in, get in," and kind of pulling us out because this freezer chest was right up against the cinder blocks. Got in there and locked the door. This was later. This was later in the evening. The sun was still up, but it was working its way down, kind of like now. I don't remember anything between then and when it was dark later that evening. But later that evening, we were all in the back bedroom. Our bedroom, which is right outside the back door, or just right beside the back door. Our bedroom is at the other end. It's got a window there. And my brothers are playing with a flashlight. Back then, I think it was called a ghost gun. You could take the cap off of it, and it would shine different silhouettes of figures. One shape was a ghost. One shape was like a spider. I don't know what the other ones. I just remember that ghost was all they used. And we used to play this game of it's kid stuff. Sounds silly as an adult, but we'd be in the dark, turn the light on, flip the ghost gun on, and there'd be a ghost silhouette. Then we'd all scream, "Ah!" Turn it off, and then pass it, and wherever somebody else had to turn it on, and then we're all screaming. They were playing. I remember. I don't remember anything between the first encounter with the one that came out of the tree. We were and it was dark. I don't know what time it was. Late. I know it was late. But we were in the room, shining it on the light, and I guess I was getting crazy scared because it was annoying them. I wanted to turn the lights on. We just saw a monster not too long ago. I can imagine that's where my frightened little girlness came in. But I wanted to turn the lights on. They didn't want to turn the lights on. I kept wanting to turn the light on. My older brother's like, "No, we don't want to turn the light on." So they kept scaring me. The more scared I got, the more they laughed. And it got to a point where I guess I was a whimpering little baby. And my oldest brother said, "Okay, fine. We'll open up the curtains. Let some of the moonlight and starlight come in, give you a little bit of visual that you could see everything or whatnot." So the way it was going was we would turn the light on, turn it off, turn the light on the ghost gun, the flashlight gun. Never used it as a flashlight, just flash it as just a flickering light. So my oldest brother decided fine, because the light never came in when he opened it. We didn't really put any of that together, why none of the moonlight or starlight had came in. So now when they would turn it on, they would use it as a flashlight and just zip it across the wall, and then do it again, zip it across the wall. Still wasn't good enough. I was getting crazy scared. And my oldest brother took it and he went across the open window, and when he did, it went right across the eyes. Just right across the eyes.
Wow.
And
you must have been petrified. I mean, I can see now how much.
It's the emotions and the terror are, every time I talk about it, it comes through from a kid's perspective. I don't know if you could see the shaking of the phone I'm holding. But when it went across the eyes, it did the same thing that the first one did when we looked into its eyes. Let me back up just a second on the layout of our bedroom. When you walk into our bedroom, straight ahead is the end of the bedroom where the window is. But when you walk, if you open the door and take 3 steps, our bed was right there. The headboard was to the right up against the wall, and the footboard was into the center of the room. So I was on the other side of the bed, where I was 3 to 4 feet from the window. And when my brother shined it across its eyes, and this one looked completely different. It made that oh crap eyes. I remember the pupil and the brown, but I remember the eyes were so much bigger. But there was white in the eyes when it did this really big. I can't even open my eyes that wide. We all screamed. I was on this side of the bed, and when I seen it, how I managed to jump over the bed on the other side, and I'm pretty sure I didn't touch it.
Wow.
As soon as I landed, one of those cinder blocks came flying through the back of our back door that was used for our steps.
Yep.
It came through, busted through the back of the door, bent the back of the door in, and there were actually concrete pieces of the cinder block in our hallway. I don't know how long. I mean, we were screaming. I'm sure we were all terrified. But I don't know how long we didn't run past that opening of the back door. It was a big enough opening that as an adult, I could have stuck my leg out it. And I don't know if it's fear that put the image in my head or if it really happened. Which is why I don't want to say. It's why I didn't say anything when I got filmed to Terror in the Woods. I don't want anything in there that I know is not 100% true when it comes to it, because when you start messing around with that stuff, you lose all kinds of credibility.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we sat there for so long because we were thinking that something was going to stick its arm in and grab us if we went by, or if something did stick its arm in there and try to grab us.
Okay.
I picture, in my head, I see a black arm reaching in, but I don't know if that was the fear of picturing something to reach in and grab us, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you're 7 years old. This is the stuff of nightmares.
yes.
I'm not surprised you can't process everything. Remember everything. And
yeah. Which is, I still see that image of a black arm coming in, but I don't know if that image is, which doesn't make any sense, because what doesn't make sense about it was the one that fell out of the tree was black. It had big bulging lips like a chimp. It looked like something from Planet of the Apes. That's the only thing I could pair it to. The other one in the window, if anybody's ever been in a trailer and you've looked out the end of a window that's on a bedroom on the end, its head, the window went from here just a mid-chest and to the inside of its shoulders. That took up the entire window.
wow.
That would tell me that at the top of this window, this thing had to been 8.5, 9 feet tall. If it was fully standing up, taller if it wasn't, and it looked completely different. Its nose was more human, but flatter, and its lips looked like it went from the full side of the face. It looked like it went from here to here, not like ours, and then we have cheeks. The mouth was just a straight line that went from here to here.
Wow.
And it was a cinnamon color. Over the years, I always said it was brown, but one day I was adding some cinnamon to some cinnamon sugar for our English muffins. I don't know what you guys call them over there. They're probably not really English here in America. But I was adding some cinnamon to some sugar, and I was like, damn, this is exactly the color. So I've been calling it cinnamon. It was a cinnamon color. And its hair was not as thick. Its hair was not as full. There was a lot less hair around the face, and I could actually see the chest skin, unlike the other one that I had seen. Its hair looked. It didn't look as fine. It looked not like mange, but it just looked thinner and raggedier. Not as thick on to where I could see it. Skin, in just that second of seeing it, it kind of looked to be the same color, a charcoal, lighter than charcoal gray. Its skin was actually lighter than the one that we seen before that evening. Maybe it wasn't lighter, maybe it was the same color, and the cinnamon color just made it seem like it was lighter. But it seemed like it was a lighter gray than the one that was black. By the time our feet hit the floor, looking back, how did it go from there to around the corner, pick up a brick and throw it through our door in a split second? It's probably 15 feet that it had to travel. Or go around the corner, for one. When you're looking in through the window, it had to make a left turn, but it would have had to turn right to go to the back door. It would have had to turn this way, go to the corner, turn right, grab a brick, and then throw it through the back door.
Could there have been two of them?
See, that's what I was. I guess this was my whole getting back to. I got sidetracked. This was cinnamon, but for some reason, the image that I have in my head was a black arm, not a cinnamon arm. But again, I don't know if that was something that was just so fearful of happening that it was going to reach in and grab us, that's what I was envisioning. But why wouldn't I envision the cinnamon one that I just seen? But I don't know, and I don't want to. I won't speculate that it really happened, but it feels like it was really happening. I maybe as a kid in my mind that was going to happen, but we finally.
Do you think the light on the cinnamon one was the fact it was shining up because there was a light shone on it? Is that what you were seeing through the window with the torch on it? Because sometimes black can be another color, can't it? When you look close to it, or when there's in a different light, it can actually be not black.
This was definitely a cinnamon color. I mean, the color of it was very, very similar to that Sasquatch in the Jack Link's commercial. Very, very similar. It was definite cinnamon color. And that put it at 2 to 2.5 feet bigger than the first one that fell out of the tree. Like I said, just its forehead to the upper to mid chest, and the inside of its pec muscles, not really even to the shoulders, took up that entire window. And so we eventually made it past that door. And my mother, as you could tell by my upbringing of her just kind of leaving her kids for a few days, disappearing and coming back, wasn't the best mother, the best role model. In fact, she was quite abusive physically. And so after seeing the destruction of the door, seeing two to us. Now the real fear came to having to explain to my mother how the back door got destroyed. So when what I remember coming out of our bedroom was the hall light was on. I don't ever remember us turning. I remember opening the door and opening our bedroom door and seeing the back door busting through. The hall light was already on. We ended up making it past it, and I remember shutting every light off but the light that was in the kitchen. And when you walk into the kitchen, or when you walk in the front door, if you just walk straight and hit the back wall, the back of the trailer, there was like a half a bar that was like a divider for the kitchen and the living room. And then our couch was up against that back wall, and it was scooted pretty close to the bar. All three of us fit in between the bar and the side of our couch to be in a position to where nothing could see us. That was the only safe place we could feel like it. And also, it was line of sight to the front door. And we stayed there. I don't know how many hours we stayed there until early in the morning. It was still dark when and when I say morning, it had to be, 1 or 2. I really don't know, 40 years ago, but I remember it being pitch black. And my mom came home with my stepfather. And when they walked up the steps, we heard them. And we heard them unlock the door and open the door. We rushed them. I think we were still terrified, but we were also terrified about what was about to happen to us. So we basically rushed him and said, Mom, the back door's busted in. It wasn't us. It was the hairy man. It was, blah, 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 blah. And so she was like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And then she went down and saw the hall, came screaming back at us. And then, we kind of threw our stepfather under the bus a little bit because we were like insistent. My oldest brother, who was probably 11, I mean, he stepped up like a man to talk to my mom, which was weird because being that abusive, we got punched in the face a lot. And, insisted, Buddy told us that there was a hairy man back there. And the hairy man, we seen it fall out of the tree. And then there was another one at the back, and it threw something through our back door. So her and my stepfather, they got kind of into a knockdown drag out in the kitchen. And he kept trying to lower our fear by saying that it was my cousin, his nephew, that threw a brick through the back door. Now, my cousin was only a year older than I was. I'm a pretty fit guy, work out regularly. Cinder blocks are still a little bit heavy now, and I'm 47. I do not know an 8-year-old is going to pick one up without struggling, let alone have the strength to throw it through a back door and obliterate this door like it did. And then we explained to him that the other one was at our bedroom window, and he's like, that was just your cousin. And it didn't make any sense. He insisted on that, insisted on it. But looking back, I know that wasn't true, because that night we packed all of our belongings up in garbage bags, threw them back in that El Camino, and we left. We left the state and came back to Illinois that night. I remember frantically, we left furniture. My mother left the dog. We left furniture. We just grabbed all of our clothes, threw them in garbage bags, threw them in the back of the El Camino, and we had to ride in the back of the El Camino, no topper on, all the way back to Illinois. We went through the mountains. It was snowing.
Wow.
And we had to use the garbage bags full of clothes to keep us warm. And we moved back. We moved back to another trailer court, the actual trailer court. Now in Illinois, there's really not a whole lot of woods like there are in North Carolina and a lot of other places. And there was a property line right behind the back of our trailer. And the property line was just like 3 trees deep, like a tree, and then a cornfield. You could literally see the corn through the trees. It was just a divider of the trailer court and the cornfield. But every night for months, I kept looking out our back door. I mean, I was terrified of this, what had happened. I kept, um, I, I kept, sorry, I had my phone pretty charged, but it's feeling down pretty low, so I'm gonna go inside, hook it up. I kept looking out the back door. I kept, every night I just kept looking out the back door. And then I went to the library, the school we just went to, and I came across this book, and it was a book that was in our library at school, and it was just like a mythical creatures type of book. It had Loch Ness in it. It had other things, and then it had this Bigfoot in it. That was the first time I had ever heard of Bigfoot. And I don't know how many times this book was late because I didn't return it the rest of the school year. And I remember my mom being mad at me for having to pay, a fine for not returning in a library book. But I was infatuated with it from then. It was such a terrifying, traumatic thing that my mind suppressed it. It put it way back and locked it away. I remember all throughout my adulthood remembering that I had an encounter, which is now I know was a Bigfoot / hairy man. But I didn't really remember the details until about 2.5, 3 years ago. We were living in Georgia at the time, and my son and I were watching Finding Bigfoot. And the joke of it is that show is the one thing we got to give them credit for is putting that topic in the mainstream now. If we can give them anything, it's the credit for making the topic of Bigfoot and Sasquatch mainstream, because it never was before. And Matt Moneymaker was on this episode talking about the people in North Carolina, the Indians in North Carolina and the Uwharrie National Forest used to call this hairy man. That was the second time I've heard that word used. The first time I heard it was when my stepfather used it. When he said it, I had physically almost threw up. I got nauseous. I got a floodgate of childhood fear, trauma, emotions, terror, and detail came back that I forgot was ever there.
One thing, one word, it just triggered it all again.
Yes, one word. I don't know if hairy man's one word or two.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, but I don't care. I know that it was. He said that, and I checked out for a couple of days mentally. I mean, I still did my fatherly duties, my husband duties, still was there, but my mind was focused on what I just remembered, so instantly I got online, started looking at things, and you can, for every one video you come across 200 that are worth even looking at. For every podcast you come across, there's 50 that aren't worth listening to, and then it just so happened that I had found that in Georgia, North Georgia, there was a Bigfoot museum called Expedition Bigfoot. It's the United States' largest Bigfoot museum. They got handprints, butt prints, footprints. He's got the actual artifacts that were in the Himalayas for the expedition on the Yeti.
All right.
If you remember the footprint with the pickaxe beside it, he's got all that stuff from that expedition in his museum. There was somebody that was supposed to, some actor or somebody that it was supposed, I can't remember who it was, the details of it, but they were supposed to be in India or somewhere, Asia. And when the monks had a Sasquatch finger or something, and the actor or whoever it was had brought it back to the States, kind of smuggled it back. It's in his museum. I mean, he's got all kinds of things. He's actually got Ron Moorhead going to be there pretty soon. He had, when I went to the museum for my first time, then he had his first town hall and asked me to talk about my encounter. I've maybe told 5 people. I could count all the people I told on one hand about my encounter from 40 years ago. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about talking about it in front, of 100 people. But I said yes. And when I realized talking about it is kind of therapy. It's hard to talk about still. It's hard to go through still, but it gets easier. When I say it gets easier for me to get through the whole thing, because the first couple times I was crying, and no man wants to be seen in front of a crowd of people crying. But I was crying when I told it at the Expedition Bigfoot museum. And Dave was the one that was contacted by the people. Dave is the owner of the museum. Was the one who was contacted by, it was called Terror in the Woods on the Discovery Channel. Discovery or History, I think it was Discovery, and asked if he had any people come in that had any great stories, and he gave them my contact information, and so that's how they were to get a hold of me. Now, what's really weird is this subject has came full circle for me 2 different times. The first time it came to full circle was I was watching Terror in the Woods, and in the intro of Terror in the Woods, there's a scream, one scream that just sounds like a lady being torn apart. And that almost made me sick. I heard it. I was like, holy crap. How did they get this? I've got to find out how they got this. This is exactly what I heard. How did you get this? Knowing never in my wildest dreams would I be able to find this out. It was just something I had to live with. Not knowing how they got this, because it was literally like they were there with a recorder and recorded it at that moment. Lo and behold, I'm in a studio with the people from Terror in the Woods, and I did my encounter with them for These Woods Are Haunted, and I got that opportunity when I got done. I was like, I'm in a place I never thought I would be. You guys have a scream at the beginning of Terror in the Woods, and I've got to know how you got that, where you recorded it from, because it's like you guys were there the day it happened. And he explained to me, he's like, well, we've had several people that we've done in Terror in the Woods that talked about the noises, and we would give them animal noises to listen to, and they never came back with a definitive, yeah, that's what I heard. And so he said they had to take a coyote call. They had to stretch the coyote call out. They had to change the octave, and then they also had to distort it. And then they would do this back and forth with the people until they got a unanimous, yes, that's what I heard. Right. That's how they got that scream. And when I asked him, I was like, because that's exactly what I heard. He turned to the sound engineer guy that was recording. He said, we should probably think about keeping that in our intro for the new series. They kept that in the intro for the new series, and they used that scream so far in every episode that they've done so far. That was my first childhood encounter. Yes, if you got any questions, I'm an open book. I've got thick skin, and I'm not shy. If anybody's got any questions.
Well, if anyone's got any questions, put them up. But that just sounds the most horrifying, scariest thing any kid wants to be put through. Yeah. And the fact that you clearly had no support to deal with that at the time, right. and until you watched that program and the hairy man was said, and it triggered all that. I mean, that, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with a man crying. I really don't. You know, this is stuff that you can't make sense of, and
Right.
it doesn't surprise me to you know, to see how deeply affected people are from these experiences. The one that came out of the tree, what else do you remember about the physique of it? 'Cause you saw it all. What else did you pick up?
It was lanky. It was about 6 foot tall. It was lanky, more of an athletic swimmer runner build. You know, it wasn't really huge. It wasn't buff. I remember it being just a few inches. I'm 5'8". My stepfather was about 5'7". I remember it just being about a few inches taller than he was, which is how I came to, you know, roughly 6 feet. I don't remember its hands. I vaguely remember its arms when it landed. I mean, you know, when we jump out of something, our arms go up, you know, and our impact, and the arms come down. This thing just landed like it was us stepping off a curb. It was almost like it could have jumped out of a 50-foot tree and it would have been no big deal. And they got to be great climbers, because that was the lowest branch. That was the lowest branch.
Yeah, it's interesting you say the way it was hanging on with its feet and its arms, a feet against the trunk and its arms wrapped around it. They could almost walk up a tree that way, couldn't they?
Probably, like I said, its feet were flat on the branch, but they were side by side right up against the tree itself, and it was squatted down, so its arm was up, like, I can't get it in the view. Its arm was like up about this angle, but its hand was wrapped around the tree. Yeah, I don't remember the feet. I just remember the position of where the legs were, and they came together on that branch. You know, surprisingly, I don't remember anything about the feet. I couldn't tell you if it had 5 toes or any toes.
Yeah.
My eyesight was on the knees. Where
Yeah.
I was looking at, the knees were right there in my direct view, and I noticed that they barely even bent. And so, you know, I am not a researcher. I go out in the woods. I'm a part of a group, but I'm not a researcher. I don't need to research these things because I've been 5 feet away from 2 of them.
Yeah.
I know they're there. They exist. They're real.
I don't think how much research you do, you'll never work out what that knee thing's about until we get a body. You know, we won't. When you got back to the trailer, when you finally let your brother let you back in, and what were you all saying to each other about it?
I don't remember. That's the thing. Between the time we got in the trailer to when it was dark, I remember nothing about. I don't remember a single thing. I can only speculate what conversations were about. I don't remember anything. I just remember, like, cutting to another scene. I remember being in the room. I remember the light, the ghost light gun, playing with it, because we didn't really get toys. So, like I said, we were kids running around the yard with sticks. To get something like that was really awesome for us. And
probably shock as well, though. I could imagine you got back and the adrenaline and everything, and then for it to happen again, you know, the whole night must have been a lot to process.
Yeah. And
what about?
Go ahead.
What about years later with your brothers? Did you discuss it? Have you discussed it since?
Yeah, I've tried, and it's bizarre because when I bring the subject up, they're really quick to change the story, as far as going along with what my stepfather said. There's like, that was just Franklin. That was just Franklin. You know, Franklin is not going to be, you know, 8-year-old kid is not going to be able to do that stuff. An 8-year-old kid is going to die falling out of a 15-foot high branch and out of a tree. There's no way he had any resource. Plus, how is an 8-foot kid gonna go, or an 8-year-old kid gonna go from being 8 years old to the size of an adult in a suit? How's an 8-year-old kid gonna go from the size of a giant outside a window?
Yeah, exactly.
If it was really my cousin, they lived at the end of the lane. So my stepfather had to drive past his brother's house, and as violent and abusive as they were, why did they not stop there and whoop his ass for tearing up the trailer? Why did we pack all of our belongings up, throw them in a bag, throw them in the back of the El Camino? We'd only been there 3 weeks. He just bought this trailer. Why did we pack up and leave the state?
Yeah, exactly.
That night.
Yeah.
And I think for some people, it's just easier to believe something else than to believe the truth, because if you believe that what is right in front of you, you have to change your whole reality. Everything is now not what it seems, or what you've been taught, or what you've learned, or what you've read, or how you were raised. So it was just something that they said that it was my cousin. It was somebody smaller than them that did that. And that was it. You know, they would just say his name was Franklin. That was Franklin. And change the subject, you know. So as far as them not accepting what happened, or just them accepting the explanation they were given. I remember when we moved to the trailer back in Illinois, they would catch me looking out the back door, and they would just grab me and say, "Come on, we're fine." I remember being consoled by them, but never talking about it. I don't remember ever talking about it with them as a kid.
It's strange, isn't it? I do wonder what goes on in the head, and whether they, you know, they have just wanted to deal with it like that, like it was, say, your cousin or whatever. Now, you've had 2 other kind of encounters. Have you got more time tonight? Because
absolutely
brilliant. Because this is interesting as well, and I'll probably think of more questions to go back to.
Absolutely.
Other encounters, and questions will come up. But I did forget to mention at the beginning that you're a singer-songwriter, successful singer-songwriter, and you won an award. And
well, I was nominated for an award.
Sorry,
I didn't pull it off, but I was.
Won it.
Yeah,
should have won it.
Yeah.
But this is how your encounter starts, isn't it? Where you're going to that place.
Yeah. So I'm a singer-songwriter. I grew up in the 80s, listening to all the hair bands, and so that's what I did for 25 years. I went out and sang Skid Row and Motley Crue and Poison and Tesla and Def Leppard and Metallica and Firehouse, all the hair bands, you know, all the glam bands, and never did any of my own stuff. In fact, the last band I was in before I started doing my original stuff was I was in a Poison tribute band, and I was the Bret Michaels.
Okay.
At the time, I had super long hair that ladies would die for. And I decided to try my own stuff. You know, I've been doing this 25, 30 years, and I've got nothing to show for it. The hardest part for me singing my own stuff was I spent 25, 30 years mimicking other people. You know, singing Skid Row, sounding exactly like Sebastian Bach and Steelheart, mimic just about everything we've done. And so singing my own voice was really a struggle. I'm a great songwriter. I don't really compliment myself. The only thing I ever complimented myself on was having awesome hair and a great voice and being a good songwriter. Since the metal days and the age, I've lost my hair and my voice, but I can still write a damn good song. But I started dabbling into country music, and I came across some people when I was in Georgia that create songs for people, and they're called Tune Designer. I don't mean to give them a plug, but they're amazing people. And I started writing some country songs and submitted them to this the world's largest independent music award show called the Josie Music Awards, the JMAs. And last year, my song was not one of my songs called "Bring Me Back to You" was nominated for Modern Country Song of the Year, and it was held in Dollywood, Gatlinburg. So it was September of last year, September 20th. I live on the east coast of Florida, central Florida, but on the east coast. They call it Treasure Coast in Port St. Lucie, Florida. So it was about a 12.5-hour drive for me, 12.5-hour drive. So I was driving up, went up 95, got off on 40, started heading west to the Smoky Mountains. And I saw this spot to pull over, had a great scenic view. To the right, on my passenger side, you could look out and see valley for miles. Just a great view. To my back, just 30 yards away, across the road, was the rest of the mountain, that went up. And so I got out of the truck, walked over to the sidewalk on the passenger side, and I'm like, yeah. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, this would be a great time just to see what it sounded like. Hear the echo of trying to do one of those goofy Bigfoot calls. I've never tried one before. Didn't even know what to do. I only heard the guys on Expedition Finding Bigfoot do it. So knowing I wasn't going to hear anything, not expecting to hear anything, I had no reason to have my phone out. I just stood there, and on that sidewalk, I was parked up against the curb, parallel to the sidewalk. On the sidewalk, if you stepped out of the passenger side of the truck, took 3 steps, there's no railing. There's about a 200-foot drop off that sidewalk. So I was on the sidewalk, and I just looked out there to the valley, and I was like, let's see if I can get a good echo doing, Bigfoot call, whatever it may be. So I did a big old yell. And after about 4 or 5 seconds, I thought to myself, you dummy. I'll just use dummy. You just yelled way out there, and there's no sound. It's going to bounce back to you. It's all open space, you goofball. And as soon as I finished that thought, I got roared / yelled at from behind. And I could feel it, but it wasn't super strong where it shook my guts. I could just feel it. There was something that had enough bass to move enough air that I could just feel it. And I could, with my back turned to it, I could hear the area that it came from. So I instantly got chills. I was freaking out, literally when I finished the thought, you dummy, you're not gonna hear it, I got yelled at. And this wasn't a human being. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't a fox. It wasn't any other thing that could make this kind of noise. And the reason I say that, because as a singer for 30 plus years, it had such a set of lungs that you got to have a huge set of lungs to move a massive amount of air for you to feel the noise, especially from 30 yards away at minimum. It was probably more closer to 50. But what also told me that this was not human is it had multiple tones in it. There was the low part of, and it wasn't a roar like a lion. To me, how I try to describe it, and I don't know why I try to describe it because I've never heard it, but if a caveman ever yelled / roared at somebody, this is what it sounded like, because it sounded humanoid, and it was a very big rah, but it had a mid-tone in it as well. And humans can't do that. Monks, they can get multiple tones out, but it's really not multiple tones. What you're hearing is the whistling coming through their vocal cords. You get the low, but then you can hear the whistling also. It gives that perception that there are multiple tones, because you have to use different vocal cords to get different things. You got your talking vocal cords and your singing vocal cords, and the amount of air that you have to move that much sound to be felt, it's got to be massive. So instantly I got on the phone with my wife. I video called her. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's like I just seen Elvis. And she told me, she's like, I know you, don't do anything stupid. just go to your hotel, check in. You got to get ready for the pre-ceremony show because there was a pre-awards celebration at Blake Shelton's club called Old Reds. And so I was like, I won't. I'm in my flip-flops anyway. I can't go up. I can't scale them out. And she's like, okay, good, bye, love you, bye. So I hung up the phone and changed into my hiking boots that I had in the back of my truck. And so I went up there. I took the path of least resistance. It kind of went a little bit steep, so I had to find a place where I could go the least resistance. And what I noticed as soon as I started getting in there was the amount of leaf litter all over the ground. Everything was covered in leaves. But I really wasn't looking at that. It was just there. And my thought process was, I'm going to go up this mountain. I'm going to go up above where I heard the vocalization coming from. I'm going to cut back east, and then I'm going to be above it. And the reason I had this process and the reason I was going to go that way is because when you're at the bottom, and you're looking up, you're seeing the ground, you're seeing the leaf litter, you're seeing all the other debris, you're seeing tree trunks, all the trees, and you're seeing the canopy from all the trees. I wanted to eliminate seeing the canopies in the trees to not have to filter so much information. I wanted to look for horizontal movement in a vertical world. I didn't want to have to see every little leaf moving in the canopy getting my focus. It's not something I thought about. It was just something of like, I need to get above it so I don't have so much to look at. So I started going up. I got about probably 30 yards up. And as I was taking a step and I made that step, something, not mind speak, not a voice in my head, a feeling, not necessarily dread. Some might call what I'm about to say is dread, but a feeling as if you take one more step, it's going to be a really bad idea. I didn't see anything up there. I didn't have any of those feelings until I got to that point. It was in mid-stride when my step landed. There's like a sixth sense or an inner sense or a primal fear that said, do not take one more step up that hill. So I didn't wrestle with that. I was like, hey, I'm not going right on. So I was like, at this point, I felt like I was vertically even with where the noise where the yell came from, the noise came from. So I started heading back east. And I got about 15 yards away from where I stopped going up. And I got that same feeling. It wasn't gradual. It was instantaneous. I was walking. I wasn't looking at the ground. I wasn't all this information that's coming to me on why I made the decisions wasn't something I thought about. It was just something that instantly I did. It didn't make any sense to look at the ground for footprints when there's hundreds of years of leaf litter. You're not going to find anything. So I never even looked at the ground. I looked straight ahead, looking at the trees and looking through the trees, and my eyes work a little different when I'm looking at trees. Most people can look at a bunch of trees and you see a tree and you see the branches and you see the leaves. You see some green leaves, you see some brown leaves. I see, a lizard on the bottom. I see what doesn't belong. Mm-hmm. I see what stands out. I don't just look at the trees and see trees. That's not subconsciously. That's not how I guess I work.
You see a Sasquatch stood in a tree. I'm pretty sure you know what to look for. You know.
Yeah. My wife calls them critter eyes. She says I got critter eyes because I will see things that she can't see. I will point things out, and she was like, "How the hell did you even see that?" I'm like, to me, it's obvious. It doesn't belong. It doesn't fit. Yes, there are brown leaves in the green grass, but there's also that little brown lizard there too. It doesn't look like a leaf. I can't explain it. It doesn't make any sense to me because I'm blind as a bat. I've got glasses and contacts. If I take my contacts out before I have my glasses with me, I've got to put my contacts in to find my glasses. I actually have mono vision. I have to have one contact for seeing close and one contact for seeing far. Okay. And so I started going east, got about 15 yards. Same thing happened. That same feeling of do not take another step. It's just really, really bad news. Don't do it. Just don't do it. It wasn't a gradual feeling. It was an instantaneous mid-stride stop. Don't go any farther. So I listened to it. I was like, this is kind of a bust. So I had to go back the way I came, because the way I came was the path of least resistance. This is when I actually started looking at the ground. I had nothing else to look at. I wasn't going to walk backwards on a hill, mountainside. This is when I started noticing, okay, everything's covered in leaves. Branches, sticks, fallen trees, covered in leaves. But there are about 12 to 15 dinner plate size rocks that are on top of these leaves. There's no mud on them as if they fell down, rolled down. There was no sliding, looked around. There was nothing that showed, okay, maybe it was a rock slide or, whatever. These leaves were literally on, or these rocks were literally on top of the leaves. Good portion of them, half maybe, were actually behind the trees on the leaves. So like if you have a tree and on the other side of that tree is a road, you're trying to hide behind that tree. Rock, big rock, was at the bottom of that tree on the ground.
Okay.
Dry, no mud, no dirt. I picked one up and carried it with me. And I was like, this is crazy. And when I picked it up and carried it with me, I noticed it. That's when I counted 12, 15 is what I came across. I just basically stopped counting. And that made me think, there's no way that there's a clumsy Bigfoot out here walking around one time with an arm full of rocks and stumbling around, and one just randomly drops here and one drops here, and then one drops here, and by the time he gets to where he's going, he only has one rock left. This, in my mind, told me this is a place that's visited frequently and recent. There wasn't even leaves blown on the sides of these things. Granted, I did just get yelled at literally minutes ago. So I had to get out of there. I had a place I had to go check in, and I had a pre-celebration award show to go to. Went to the awards the next day. I didn't win. I was nominated out of 24,000 songs that were entered. But to me, that's a big accomplishment. I've entered about 4 tunes this year into it. Hopefully, who knows? I think I'm going to keep going so I can bring one of those awards home, just so I can have something on a shelf to show my kids. I really did. Of course, they know that I got drum sets and guitars laying all over, and they hear me play my songs all the time and sing them back to me. They're my biggest fans. So didn't win, went back home, came back to Florida, but it kept eating at me. They've had to go through there 3, 4 times if they were carrying 2 to 3 rocks at a time. This is a place that's frequent. So in October, I went back. Now, granted, this is 12.5 hours drive for me. I'm not going to spend time and money and time away from my family and drive 12.5 hours there, knowing that I got to drive 12.5 hours back because of nothing. I work paycheck to paycheck like 95% of the rest of the world. This wasn't something I was just doing just because of maybe. Now, granted, that encounter and my childhood encounter, I would have never known they were there had they not vocalized at us. The first time they had vocalized at me and my brothers. The second time it was vocalized at me only. There was nobody else there. I went alone. So I went back a month later, but this time I was prepared. I learned from my mistake the first time, but now I've learned from my mistake the second time. The second time I went back, pulled in, drove straight through. Man, I drove 12.5 hours straight through, got out of my truck. As soon as I opened my door, I pressed record on my phone, the video, walked to the back of my truck, got on the sidewalk, turned around, and I did the same yell in the same exact direction from where I heard it and where I tried to go up to. About 5 seconds later, I got whooped back at, and I got that on recording, on video, on my phone. And I was lit, man. I was ready to go. I literally took my phone, turned the camera off because I wanted to put my hiking boots on. So I opened up my driver's side door. I sat in the driver's seat, got my hiking boots out of the passenger floor, and I was facing the mountain, sitting with my legs outside of the driver's side of the truck, and I'm putting my boots on. And I literally said into my mind, and I will leave out the curse words, I just drove 12 and a half freaking hours. There's nothing that's going to stop me from going up that mountain. Nothing. As soon as I finished that thought, it was a thought. I didn't say it. I thought it because I just got a response. I was tying my shoes, and what sounded like something had taken a full-grown tree, not a little tree the size of a 2x4, but a full-grown tree, and smashed it into another tree. It wasn't a wood knock like you hear on TV where it sounds like a baseball bat hitting a tree. It sounded like a huge tree hitting the side of another huge tree. You could hear the bark crunch, obliterate. It wasn't a tree falling down. You hear a tree falling down in the mountains or in the forest. You hear cracking of branches and creaking and the impact and other trees cracking and branches and breaking and all the commotion of everything falling. This was silent to a huge thunderous crunch, and then it went silent. It's the whole mountainside went silent right there. I don't know how to explain the two times when I said something in my mind, there was a response. I said to myself, there is nothing, and nothing is going to keep me from going up that hill. And this thing took a tree, crushed it against another tree, and I took that as you want to bet. And I didn't. I didn't cross the road. I got the message. I did stay there that night. I stayed there that night. I didn't move my truck. I parked in that spot, and I don't have any money to speak of to where I could go out and afford night vision, to where I could go out and buy all this fancy stuff. I laugh. That's all I got. I used what I had. I had a baby monitor that had night vision on it. And I set the baby monitor up on the roof of my truck, and I laid in the back of the truck inside, and just stared through that monitor, but I couldn't see 3 to 4 feet away from my truck. It was so pitch black. There was zero light for it to bounce off of, and like you get light from the paint in a room. So I thought maybe it was broken. So I got out of the truck, took my monitor. It was like it's almost like a tablet. It came with it, that you could see your child with the tablet, and it was cordless. I got out of the truck, stood 10 feet away, couldn't see me. Took a couple more steps, couldn't see me. It wasn't until I was about 3 or 4 feet away from the truck that I could actually start to see me. And that freaked me the hell out, because that told me that they could be 10 feet away and I'd never know unless they made a noise. So all night I battled with that. My mind was messing with me. The terror was messing with me. Again, I would have never known they were there the third time had they not vocalized to me. And that's something that I struggle with, for the simple fact of why? If they want to be hidden, if they don't want nobody to know they're there, why? Why did I get vocalized at 3 different times in my life? 2 times in the same exact location. And I believe with what I've seen, and because I come back a month later and they're still in the exact same place, at that time, they were residing there. And I say they because the first time was a giant rah. And the second time, when you hear people do whoops, they go whoop, and it goes up. This was in reverse. It went from high to low. It went whoo, and it was really loud. But when I said earlier that I learned from my mistake the first time by not having my phone on, from the second time I learned from my mistake, because when I had my phone up and recording just like I'm doing now, the face of my phone is facing me, and I was looking through the phone trying to record as I yelled when it did its whoop. So the microphone was facing me and not the direction it came from. So on the recording, you hear me plain as day when I did my yell. on when the whoop reply comes back in, you really have to crank up the volume on the phone, and either through a headset or a Bluetooth speaker, you can hear it. But knowing what I know now, I can either get, like, they make those external microphones so you could plug in where your headphones are, and I can use it as an external microphone that way. But because I have recording software, I was able to put I recorded the whole thing on my recording software, and I put some splits in, and I lowered my yell's volume and raised the volume as far as I could on the response. And I was able to hear it much better. But that night, I laid there and I laid there and I laid there, and I ended up leaving around, I think it was around 4:30 or 5 o'clock, because I freaked myself out. I kept thinking, I never heard it pick a tree up. Was it carrying a tree the whole time? Was there just a tree laying there? If it can pick up a giant tree and smash it against another giant tree, I am literally parked beside a sidewalk, and on the other side of the sidewalk is a 200-foot drop. It can come over here, it can flip this damn truck over the side, and nobody will ever see me again. I kept thinking that and thinking that and thinking that. And the whole time I'm thinking that, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? You've got nothing. I had a machete. That would have probably for slit my own throat if they were to come at me, because that would have probably done no good. But they were, I don't know, it was at least one. It was going from left to right on the mountainside, just inside the trees. I couldn't see. I had some really good flashlight that would just pierce right through stuff, but they were in a place that I couldn't see with the light. Every time I turned the light off, I would hear the noise stop. It was like I could hear it in the leaves. There's so many leaves on the ground that you could hear everything. I would hear a step, 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 and you could hear it in the leaves. And it went from left to right, like 80 paces this way, 80 paces back. It was slow, and I heard it all night, until I just, like I said, my mind was racing. It was, get out of here. What are you doing? What are you doing? Save yourself. And that was what happened there.
We could end up getting into a panic, such a panic, can't we? And I mean, I know it was already a sort of a tricky situation, but you can heighten the intensity of it, can't you, with the panic? And what made you decide to stay? Was it because it was too late for you to set off or something? Why did you choose to stay?
I just drove 12 and a half hours.
Okay, fair enough.
I just drove 12 and a half hours, although it prevented me from going up there, because I said in my mind, nothing's going to prevent me from going up there. And it said, you want to bet? Because that's what I took it as. I wanted to stay. I just wanted to stay. I knew that, okay, maybe I tried a couple of howls again, yelling like this, doing the same exact thing. It never responded again. It never knocked again. But I feel, and these are just feelings, I've got nothing to back it up, no visual to back it up. But from the tones that I heard, the first one was a very manly woman, or it was a man. It was a male, because it was dominant. Its yell was like, I hear you, we hear you, now move along, type of thing. The second one sounded very feminine, or maybe a young juvenile, because like I said, it was a higher to low on my yell. Came from the same exact area, and when I Google Earth, that area where I hear it from, there is a black spot in the canopy, not meaning like it was erased. There's a black circular shadow in the canopy, like they've either hollowed it out, or trees just can't grow there.
Okay.
So you can't really see down in it. There's just a shadow circle right in the exact spot, and I feel like they reside there either during that time or all that time, because the wind direction seems to come up over the top of the mountain, and they were below the top of the mountain, so they'd be sheltered from that. I believe that, I can't back it up. It just feels like that they reside there either a short period of time or permanently. But what's bizarre is they were less than 50 yards from the main road, concrete blacktop road.
Yeah. And we'll go back to what you were saying, that maybe you think that they know your intent.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm not saying mind speak, because you don't, right. You heard that, but when did that come to you, that maybe that's what they could do? Because what I'm thinking is, were you sat in that car that night trying to initiate some sort of a contact again with them? Were you thinking anything to try and initiate them to do something?
When I went back, my intention was to actually go up there. My intention was to do the same exact thing, but push through that second sense, sixth sense of don't go, but try to push through it. Part of me was kind of hoping that feeling wouldn't be there and I'd be able to fulfill what I meant to try to do the first time. But when I really didn't, when I got the recording, my phone out to record it, I really didn't expect a response. I've always read that they travel, they move along, they're never in the same place, blah, 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 blah. But I've also read from just about every researcher I've read that they're on the ground, they're not in the trees. I call bullshit. The first one fell 15 feet out of a tree, landed an arm length away. I feel like researchers are missing half of the territory they're searching if they don't look up. It's off topic, but they say that these things recognize guns. Hunters say that they're out in the woods 30 years, never seen anything. They're not out there. Well, when you're out in the woods, 99% of the hunters are shooting deer, they're shooting turkey, they're shooting bear, they're shooting wolf, they're shooting coyote, they're shooting fox, they're shooting a raccoon. And that's at night in a tree. But raccoons, there's not a whole lot of that going on. Spunt hunters are looking at the ground. If they've got a tree stand, they're up in a tree stand looking at the ground. They're not looking up. The billy ape was told to be a myth because apes live on the ground, and they were found in trees, and they're the size of full-grown human beings. So I feel like researchers that are going out looking on the ground all the time, yes, you want to find prints, that's kind of a trophy, but seeing one is a bigger trophy. Yeah. And when you limit yourself to just looking at finding tracks, I believe that you're kind of missing the big picture. But
and there's also
go ahead.
That some they're showing themselves to some people and not others. They choose moments for some reason, and they seem to. Well, I mean, I know some punters do see them, but there was no reason for them to show themselves to you.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up, because that was your original question and I got off topic. So after getting yelled at for the third time, I had an internal battle, an internal question of why. Why are they vocalizing to me? I'm sorry, I started getting a little dark, so I was opening up my blinds a little bit. Why are they vocalizing at me? And then, I came across this thing where theories of, maybe not theories, but I don't know much about, the mediums can see people's aura and see, a glow that normal people can't see because they have a different spectrum or whatnot that they can see. And so I started thinking, maybe they can too. Maybe they could see my aura. Maybe they could see my intent through my aura. This is me just grasping. I have no fact, it's just a feeling. But I can't think of any other reason. So 2 times in the same location, I got vocalized at by what wasn't a bear, It wasn't a fox. It wasn't a mountain lion. It wasn't a bobcat. It wasn't a deer. It wasn't an owl. I've heard that stuff. I got a gator out here. I know all the noises they make. And, you know, the only other thing that could kind of come close would be man, but man would have to use other things to replicate that. You'd need an amplification. You'd need a distortion. You would need power. There was no homes on that, cabins, anything, within miles. Up that mountain, down the side of the mountain, back up the other mountain, down the other side of the mountain. There were no hiking trails in this area. I was the only vehicle there. So,
could they have seen you traveling up that road from a distance?
That's another thing about the scenery, because when you get off of 40 and you start taking that road heading over to Gatlinburg through the Smoky Mountains, when you round a curve, the trees, all the same tree, the trees were the same kind of trees. But when you round the curve, here's the best way I can explain it, is if it's dark outside, you can sit in your living room and open windows and not see a damn thing outside. But you can stand outside that window, be 3 feet away and see everything inside, but people can't see you. Yeah. The trees had that same effect, but all the other trees around it had branches. These trees, the branches were broke off all the way up until the canopy. So there was a bunch of trees that created a big black spot inside. And I couldn't even see if it was rock, if it was stone, if it was dirt or anything. It was so dark in there. I couldn't see in, but you could see out. And it almost, when I look at it, it almost looked as if it was a window for them to look out through in the dark around that curve. Because I had to go just, 50, 75 yards past that to pull over for the scenic view. I didn't, going farther west, there wasn't that same effect at the other end of the curve. It was just that spot. And I had took screenshots of those, and showed people, and like, yeah, those are the same trees, but there is no reason why these trees branches are stripped all the way up into the canopy when the trees here and here are not. That doesn't make sense. Same trees, they get the same amount of sunlight. Something was weird about that. Yeah. Can I say they did it? No. Can I say what yelled at me both times 100% was a Bigfoot? No. I can say with 99.9%, oh, let me say it this way. I can say with 100% that it wasn't anything else.
Yeah. Because
I didn't visually see it. But I can tell you 100% what it was not. And, that's where, you gotta put the pieces together. And I don't like to speculate. But with this subject, in the end, without seeing one, I have, two. Without seeing one, you're just left with speculation.
You had your gut feeling as well, didn't you? Not to take another step. There was something that happened that made.
There was no reason for it. I didn't see anything up there that looked kind of shady or creepy. It was just a mountainside. But
the one that fell off the branch, did it break the branch because it was stepping on the branch, or do you think the branch was broken anyway?
No, well, it might have cracked, and that might be why we looked up. But when we looked up, all of its weight was on that branch up against the tree, as close to the tree as it could possibly get. And it wasn't only until it started to stand up when we looked at it, I think its weight shifted or it took less weight off of its hand that it was holding onto the tree with is when that branch broke, and it broke. It broke. I don't think it broke right at the tree. I think it was like 3 or 4 inches out that it broke. And that might have been where maybe when it seen us, I don't know how long it'd been there. I really don't know. Maybe when it seen us that it shifted or something, and that's what cracked, what got our attention or something. Had that not happened, we would have never known it was there. Actually, had it not vocalized at us first, we would have never known it was there. But had the branch not actually cracked when we looked up, and I wonder if maybe because we were so close to that tree, it might have tensed up or something. It might have shifted a little or something to watch us walk by. But that's what got our attention.
And as you know, go back to it. It wanted to know, for you to know, it was there, but just by making the vocalizations, which is, what sort of threat did they think kids would have been? I don't think they would have thought you were a threat.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it was parenting for us, because I believe, most of the time we were swinging sticks at each other, hitting each other with sticks. That's why we were running.
Right.
Yeah. It could have been like, hey, leave the kid alone, kind of thing. I really don't know. That's just me just cracking. But
I've got a question up here from Andy Gone Fishing. Did they whistle at you before the yell, or did you hear a whistle with the yell, or anything with a whistle?
No. At no point. See, I have because of being in a band for 30 plus years with 10,000 watts behind you every gig, and then I had a mastoidectomy, which is a surgery. That bump behind your ear, that bone in your skull, is called the mastoid. That infection that got in my mastoid, and I had to have surgery done. So what they do is they cut into your skull and drain out the infection. I had MRSA in there. I had it done twice. When they did that, my ears, ever since the day of surgery, after the surgery that day, my ears ring crazy loud, and sometimes it's so loud that it hurts. So my friend of mine, that when I rechanged the volume of the recording and turned it all up, he said that after it did it, the whoop once, he says that there's another one in there pretty close after, that he can hear faintly. I can't hear it at all. I have a hard time passing a hearing test because most of the beeps sound like what's in my ear. And having a CDL, and driving a truck, you got to have your hearing. You have to pass your hearing test, or they won't give it to you. And usually they're like, "Okay, I'll just whisper," and I'm like, "I'm sorry, I can't hear you." Then they will look at me while I whisper so I can read their lips. I'm like, "Oh yeah, your house is green. Yeah, I got that." But no, there was no whistle at any of them. The one that landed right by me, there was no smell. I don't remember a smell. I don't know if my senses of other than fear and run took over. And also, listening to so many encounters on some podcasts like Sasquatch Chronicles, there's all this talk about eye shine. This flashlight, 40 years ago, went right in its eyes, and there was no eye shine. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. I feel disappointed that there was no eye shine. But I don't know if it was the angle. I don't know if it was the type of light. I don't know. That's one thing that I just haven't figured out. I have heard of other encounters where people said that there was no eye shine. Then there's people that say the eyes are glowing red without any light source.
Yeah.
I've got no answer for that.
And what about this wide mouth? I mean, I've never heard of anything that has such a wide. You said kind of like from ear to ear.
Yeah, it was like literally like the mouth. Like ours stop here, and then we've got cheeks. This, like the mouth went all the way here. Like it went like almost like across the entire, but it was straight, just straight across, and it didn't have a bubbled lips. If
did you see any teeth? Did it bear?
No, no. It didn't even move its mouth or or anything. Just the eyes go. I have to change my whole face just to make my eyes get big, but it's just eyes went, you know, like, oh shit, oh crap. I mean, and then when I made that move to jump over the bed, that's when there was a smash on the door. And then after all these years of thinking, how did that thing get around so fast? How is that's not humanly possible for sure? You know, then I start speculating. Was there two? You know, was that younger one, the smaller one, was it an adolescent, a juvenile? And when it screamed, was it screaming at us? Was it screaming for mom or dad? Hey, there are some people in our place and they need to go. Because it's humanly not possible. Less than a second, I jumped over that bed. When my feet hit the ground, it was the same time that brick went through the back door.
Wow. That's that must have been such a crazy night.
Yeah.
It's the scariest night I could ever imagine.
Yeah, it really was. And what's...
Have you ever been back to that spot?
No, I don't even know where it is. I don't know what town it is. I don't know what part of the state it was. I know that later on in life, my mom and stepfather moved to a town called Pembroke, North Carolina. But I'm sure that looks a lot different than it did 40 years ago. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't.
And did you ever have a chat with your stepdad?
No, not since. He didn't really like us much. He liked our mom, but he didn't like us. So the term stepdad is just like it was. You know, he'd probably preferred that we weren't there at all, honestly. Little, not necessarily needed, but side note, you know, as far as how my mother was, she took me and my two older brothers to my aunt's for the weekend and didn't show up for 2 years. So that's the mindset. She was with my stepfather. So, you know,
that's a shame. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a shame, you know, like I said before, you've had no support even from your parents
Right.
to deal with that. I mean, that's a traumatic experience for anybody, let alone, you know, so gosh, thank you for sharing that, because I could see how, you know, intense that was for you.
Right. No, yeah, it was. It gets easier to talk about. What's weird is that when I go into telling the whole encounter, there's one thing that I really wish I could, and I'm sure it's part of PTSD. I don't know if can you guys see my sunset view?
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
Got the lake right behind me.
Nice.
It's really nice out tonight. What's weird is I can't get over the fear. The fear that I had in this encounter is unlike any other fear that I've had. I drove trucks, and I was in a dump truck hauling a load of lime, and I got hit at 70 miles an hour by another semi. Wow. I was a tandem dump truck, and I got flipped over, and the semi was on top of me. There's been a couple car accidents that I should have been dead, and people couldn't figure out why I didn't have a scratch. I can talk about that all day long. Nothing. This is real. The Bigfoot encounter is real life too, but the car crashes are something that 90% of people can relate to because it's happened to them. They've done it. They've been in it. Doesn't have a thing, but as soon as I start talking about my encounter, my voice starts to shake. My body starts to tremble on the inside. I get goosebumps, and for a good part of it, I got to hold back the tears. I have to take breaths to get through sentences. And these are just, and I feel like I'm reliving it as a child. These are all child emotions. And I think the reason everybody that hears me is like, you probably don't ever want to see one of these things again. No, absolutely I do. Because I know they exist. I've been within arm reach of 2 of them. Part of me just wants to validate what I saw as a child. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't I'll be able to, God, I hope as an adult, I'll be able to process things much different and be able to look at things much different, because when I look at things much different, not in a different perspective, but my eyes and mind analyze what I'm looking at differently than just this tree right here. I'm not looking at the leaves. I'm looking for what's bouncing around, what birds are in it. If there's a squirrel in it. It's not just a tree until I see movement. I'm looking for what isn't a tree, and that's how it is with this. And so I don't know how to attribute that as far as what I process.
I guess it's maybe a case of you're kind of in survival mode, where you're kind of looking out for yourself because something's happened and no one else is looking out for you.
Yeah, like a heightened sense of awareness or something.
Because you've dealt with it so long on your own as well, it's become the habit of you're the one dealing with this, and I guess you have to protect yourself as much as you can, in any way you can, and so that's why it's so difficult for people to talk about things, because we don't get a chance to share it and feel that sense of security and someone believing what you're saying, because this is such a out of the ordinary thing for most people, but it's happening, isn't it?
My best friend of 30 years that I had been in a band with for 30 years, 25, 30 years, he knew everything about me, but he didn't know this. He didn't know this till about 5 months ago when I told him. And so, he believes in Bigfoot, Sasquatch. He's never seen one. He's never had an experience. But he didn't know that I did, which doesn't make sense. I knew I'd never got ridiculed by him. But you just don't talk about it all the time. But that's, for me, that's changing. There are, you guys give people a safe place to talk about it. And, there's a few other places out there that they say this is a safe place to talk about it, and, there are very few that are legit, that are a safe place to talk about it. I've seen some where it's a safe place to talk about until you're offline, and then you can see their comments afterwards in the video of maybe this guy had a little bit too much to drink, or blah, 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 blah. There's so much criticism between researchers, and nobody has an ounce of criticism that they should be giving to anybody else, because they don't have one that they can prove it to everybody else. I honestly have theories and thoughts to what people are hearing. Where we go, some would call it research. I'm not researching. I just want another sighting. I'm not looking for how they eat, what they eat, where they go, when they go, how they go, what time of year they go. I don't care where they go. I just want to see one right in front of me at a distance that I feel safe. But I honestly feel like that when I'm with a group, I'm not going to see one. That is a feeling that I have, and I have no other reason to feel it than just because I've been vocalized that now 2 times by myself. I've gone to places where the day before there was multiple people that had a sighting. Go with the group, and there's not even a sense of feeling that there's anything that's ever been there. I feel like
a very personal experience, though, didn't it? It's like you went up there the first time you did the whoop, you thought this isn't going to happen, and then it happened, and then you went back and it happened again. It feels like there's some connection, maybe.
Yeah, and like I said, I can't say that they can see your aura or your intent, but 1,000 people drive down that road every day. I haven't seen any other big groups in that area where people have reported sightings. I haven't seen on the BFRO where people have reported any interactions in that area. I don't really go to the BRFO all that much. I mean, they are a source of, this is all my opinion, they are a source of encounters, but they leave a lot of detail out that people tell. You know, when you start getting into the weirder stuff, like it just disappeared right in front of me, they leave that off the reports. They kind of make it to believe that their agenda is to prove to everybody that it's a undiscovered primate and nothing else.
I interviewed a guy with some of the guys who was a BRFO investigator. I think he'd done it for about 30 years, and he's now experiencing a different side to Bigfoot. That there's you know, mind speak and other stuff going on. But I said to him before, what did you think about Bigfoot before all this? And he said, well, I was a BFOR. I think he still is a BFOR investigator. He said, and we're very, you know, scientific in the way they do their research. They don't entertain, like you say, those other aspects that people are experiencing. And so we're not hearing a lot. We're not hearing everything. That's what I think. And in particular, the weirder stuff. And it kind of makes me think about other people that are having experiences and just want to say it's a flesh and blood creature, but maybe they saw something else. And it's hard enough to say you've seen a Bigfoot. It's even harder to say I saw it disappear, or I saw, you know, and I think people are still holding back because, you know, it's so out there, isn't it? But
yeah, it is. It's very out there. To people that don't believe or haven't seen, just the thought of Bigfoot is out there. Now, into the Bigfoot community and researchers that do believe and may have had sightings, but other people come out and say, well, this thing just cloaked, or this thing just disappeared, or this thing just stepped out of a portal. That's just as out there to the non-believer as it is to the researcher. You can't discredit thousands of people because it doesn't fit what you believe or what you've experienced. I have never had one just open a door and pop out in front of me from a portal, or disappear in front of me, or cloak in front of me. Thank God, by the way. I don't want to see that as an adult. I mean, I kind of do. It'd be kind of neat, but I don't think I could process. I think it'd be just like a child as far as processing what that would look like, how that would feel, how that'd make me feel. Because this the thought of believing that there's something out there like that, to most of the people who don't believe, you have to change your reality. You have to change your whole way of thinking. Now you got to look at the Bible a little different. You got to look at what these things are. If these things are some sort of human hybrid, well, that just turns the Bible and religion on its head. You know, I had mentioned to you before, most people don't know that about the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah.
What did you think about that?
That's interesting. That's interesting. I'll bring them up. Do you want to explain it while I find them?
Sure. Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel, completed it in like 1500s, 1542, 1562, in the mid 1500s, way before Christopher Columbus sailed to America, discovered America, even though many other people have been here before Christopher Columbus. In one of these paintings that's on the wall, there's a battle between good and evil. The angels are trying to save humans, and the demons are down below pulling at the humans from clouds and from trees. So there's a battle of good and evil for the humans. All these demons have horns on their heads. They are hairless, and they have horns on their heads. But oops, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, my screen moved. At the very bottom of this painting, there is a demon looking at a Bigfoot coming out of a cave, out of the ground, and it looks like it's whispering in its ear. The thing coming out of the cave is covered in hair with an enormous foot. There's no horns on it. It looks like nothing these other demons are. And this was in the 1500s, painted in the Sistine Chapel, all about biblical things, all about good and evil, all about angels and demons. But there's only one in this painting on that wall that's hairless, or that's hairy, and it's coming out of the ground. And when I seen that, I was floored, because when I seen it after, I felt like that they were in a cave in Tennessee, where I was in East Tennessee, in the Smoky Mountains.
I've put it up.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see this, but
yeah, I can see it.
And if you look closely, when I emailed you back, like between its legs, they look like two heads with little faces on them. If you look really closely, I don't know whether that's its leg muscles or what, but it seemed really weird.
Yeah, and you can see, actually in that picture, but you can see part of the foot is huge.
Yes.
It's coming out. It is huge.
It is big.
But that thing is covered in hair. The rest of these demons, like this one with the horn, there's no hair on their body. There's only one, and it's coming out of the ground, out of the cave. It's almost like that demon is whispering in its ear.
Yeah, that is crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think I've got another picture, just so people get if they want to look.
So the question I had about Michelangelo is, where did he get his inspiration for this painting?
Yeah.
You know?
This is the thing. Like all these books with stories of things that are coming true. Well, you know, where did they hear about this stuff? Because this stuff's been about for a long time.
Well, my stepfather said the words "hairy man."
Yeah.
You know, honestly, he was kind of a butthole. Like I said, I don't think he could have cared whether we lived or died. But why did he warn us? Stay out. First thing my feet hit the sand. I was the first one out. I jumped over the side of the El Camino. My feet hit the sand, and I was in the middle of a stretch. And he turned to us and said, "Don't go in the woods. There's hairy men in there." He didn't have to say that.
No.
The way looking back on how he was, I would have thought he would have coaxed us to going back in there just to get rid of us. You know, as a Native American, this is something in their culture. You know, and I don't know what to make of it. All I know is it happened. There is a PTSD that is hard to explain from this. There is a primal fear and terror that I cannot explain from this, because like I said, being in car wrecks where I'm looking through the windows going, this is it. It's nothing. It's not even on the same plateau, on the same level. It's not even in the same category of fear, which is very bizarre. And I don't know if that fear is engraved in us as a human from a long time ago, when we may have existed side by side. We knew not to mess with them, kind of thing. Back then, they probably had the numbers on us because there wasn't as many humans around as there is now.
I think your first encounter was not just seeing a Bigfoot, but something coming out the tree and landing. The whole process of this thing not being injured, and
literally, it was like watching a superhero movie, and the Hulk jumps off a building and lands, and it barely phases him. His hands don't touch the ground. He just bends his knees a little bit, like, yeah, so what? It was very superhero-like. You know, looking back, that's not something. I don't care what kind of acrobat you are. You're not going to jump 15 feet out of the ground and your hands not touch the ground. You're not going to do it.
Yeah. I've got a few questions. Let's get some
questions. Absolutely.
LA Swan Pipe Carl, do you think it's human or maybe part human?
First I was thinking, you know, just flesh and blood, undiscovered primate. That was what my first thought was. But looking and listening to a lot of encounters, and I can't Nobody's wrong because nobody knows. Well, some people might, but they're probably involved with the government. Looking at it, and seeing pictures of tracks that are in the mud and they just disappear. There's not another track 40 feet around, and it's all mud. Tracks in the snow that just disappear. These tracks have toe prints in them, and they just disappear. That's not just flesh and blood. That's not just human. I have ideas and thoughts of what they might be, if they're wanting to know. Do I think they're alien? No, but that doesn't mean I'm right. Do I think they're just flesh and blood? No, but that doesn't mean I'm right. Do I think they are partially human? I kind of do. I kind of feel like that, but that doesn't mean I'm right. Let me go ahead and say that too. That doesn't mean I'm right. They could very well be all of those. There's no reason they couldn't be all of those. Nobody knows. We don't know. That's why we can't discredit everybody just because it doesn't line up with our belief or what we think. I will never tell somebody that they saw something cloak and disappear and then turn into a lizard. I don't know. I don't know what they saw. People don't know what I saw until I tell them. And if you're a non-believer, it's very hard to believe. But it's not that hard to believe when it can reach out and touch you.
Yeah. Oh God,
I think, some people think that they're just another breed of ape that hasn't been recognized by scientific, and there's no wrong. That doesn't mean that that's not true. It very well could be true. I just don't think that's the case. I have nothing to back that up. I feel like I think that they're somewhere along the line. They're part human, somewhere in there, and I feel like that's why it's being covered up. Because if there is another species of humanoid type thing out there, again, this goes against the Bible. This turns religion on its head. This turns everything we were taught in school and everything we were taught in college and everything we were taught in our social life and religion is wrong. And none of it can be wrong because it casts doubt in all of it. And if it casts doubt in all of religion, religion is the only thing keeping this world together. This is how I view things. This is not how it is. This is how I view things. So I don't want a whole lot of people, coming at me with hatred. Without religion, this world would be in complete chaos. Religion and God gives us a reason to live a good life and be good and go by the good rules, just to keep the world without chaos. Otherwise, what's to stop 6 billion people from killing each other, taking all of everybody's belongings, doing whatever the hell they want because they can, because there are no consequences. There is no eternal burning in hell. It's one life, and I'm going to live it how I want. Nobody else is going to dictate. And the world would be in complete chaos without it. And saying that these things are part man, it kind of, like I said, it kind of touches on some of the stuff in the Bible not adding up.
Yeah.
And if something in the Bible doesn't add up, that casts doubt on the whole damn thing. And which is why religion is good. To the atheists, they might argue that. I've met some atheists. They're good people, depending on how they believe, depending on how their morals are and their standards are. But I have met some Christians who have been the nastiest people I've ever met. I used to go to church a lot when I was younger. I haven't gone to in a long time. And my mindset is I don't need to get up early Sunday morning and go to church. I can pray at home. I can pray in my car. I can talk to God while I'm on the toilet. Not the ideal place, But if God is all forgiving and all caring and all knowing and all loving, he doesn't care where I am as long as I'm talking to him.
Mm-hmm. That's the difference, isn't it, with people who are having, you know, like I'm sure Matrix 7's Marianne will agree with me. People having a personal experience with God, a relationship with God, Jesus. It doesn't have to be in a church. It doesn't have to be part of that. You know, I don't want to upset anybody, but there's a lot of I'm not going to say it anyway, but you know, you don't have to
hypocritical things going on.
You don't have to be part of that process, and it's not all about the putting money into a hat and you know, passing it around so these churches can look amazing and opulent, and there's still starving people on the street. And to me, it doesn't, like you say.
Yeah. Nobody would go to the Vatican if it was a ran down hole in the ground.
Exactly. So. Right, let's go to the next question anyway, and we'll keep it. Matt Niven, were the ears flat against the head or stuck out?
I didn't see them. I didn't see ears on any of them. It could have been for the lack of not wanting to look at what just terrified me. What I did notice on the big one, the one that was cinnamon colored in the window with the light on it, I noticed the eyes, I noticed the nose, I noticed the flat mouth, and I noticed that the hair was a lot farther away. The hairline was a lot farther away in the face. It almost looked as if a little bit, the closest I could come to as far as nationality, it looked like a really, really, really old, really like 110-year-old Native American with a flat nose, with a flat wide nose. You know, it just had that long, straight mouth, lips straight across. You ever seen people that don't really have poofy lips? There's just the lip line.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like.
That's interesting. Jamie Cotterill, has Jimmy ever thought of writing a song about them?
No. Most of the things that I write have meaning. Things that have happened, or, you know, love songs. You know, I was explaining to you about like the song that I wrote for my wife. Yeah. Most of my songs are inspired by my wife. I have the best wife in the world. I got a better wife than I deserve. That is for sure. And the song I wrote for her was called Yes. The title is one word. It's yes. And it's based on the premise of how one single word can change the direction and the outcome in your entire life. People don't realize that. Whether that word is yes or whether that word is no, one word can change the direction of your life. And the word yes was, you know, hoping she said yes, you know, and, you know, the lyrics are in the first verse because it's not just a big day for the bride. There's jitters and nervousness with the husbands. You know, there was a lot of jitter and nerves with me, not because I doubted how much I loved my wife, but my father was married 5 times. My mother was married 6. This was my number 2. You know, I did not want to follow that path. Mm. The lucky thing about my wife is when she was 13, I lived on 1st Street. She lived on 2nd Street. So the back of our house is kind of met through an alley. And she's younger than I am, so we grew up as friends all our lives. But when she was 13, she told her mom, I'm going to marry him. And her mom's like, oh, whatever, you know. And then her mom ended up later on in life set me up with her older sister. But in the song, I got sidetracked. Yeah, I know, crazy, right? But in the song, it's about the emotions that I went through, you know, and the whole scenario. Like, I had practiced how I was going to propose to my wife. I had went out and got the ring that I knew she wanted. I screwed it all up. I screwed up my lines. I got the wrong ring size, you know, and it didn't matter because she still said yes. And you know, those are the words, and it's the first verse. Everything's, you'll hear the word one a lot because it's around that one word, yes. And just the first verse is one bottle of wine, one candle lit, one knee on the floor, hoping she says yes. One box in my hand, one life to live, 1 second away. Oh, this is it. hoping she says yes to a life with me, hoping she says yes to a family, hoping we grow old with no regrets. I'm hoping she says yes. You know, and to her, you know, that was it. That was all she needed to hear, and she was in tears when it was finally done and produced. You know, and the second verse is, oh gosh, oh gosh, one second. Oh no, I guess I'm hoping. She said, yeah. One shaking hand, you know, because I'm proposing to her. One trembling voice, one line to say. She's got one big choice. 1 second away, one life to live, one little silent prayer under my breath, hoping she says yes to a life with me, hoping she says yes to a life with me, hoping she says yes to a family, hoping we grow old with no regrets. I'm hoping she says yes. And then the bridge is, it didn't matter about the wrong ring size. It didn't matter about my screwed up line. The Lord heard my request. It circled back around to that little silent prayer under my breath. The Lord heard my request because she said yes. She said yes to a life with me. She said yes to a family. No one will grow old with no regrets. I'm so glad she said yes. And the song was done lyrically, when I was driving to the studio, thinking about it and hearing the music that was done, and I was going there to record it, I literally said to myself, I cannot imagine living my life without her. I said it to myself. And instantly, I'm like, that is got to be in the song. So those are the last two lines in the song. I can't imagine living my life without you. Just repeat it. I can't imagine living my life without you. You know, no, I haven't. I could write a song about anything, but I haven't thought about writing one about Bigfoot. I really can. You know, my buddy being rockers give me some really explicit things to write about, you know, challenging me, and next day I have a complete song. You know, most of my songs have meanings, but a couple don't. They were just random, hearing music in my head and writing, making the lyrics sound like the music, the rhythm. Sorry,
Well,
I went on way too long. I apologize, guys. My bad.
Fine. Well, you've got some tunes, I think, on YouTube or on iTunes as well. People can check you out, can't they, and listen to your
yeah, I'm on iTunes and Amazon Music and YouTube and Spotify and all the online music stores. I sent you an email with an exclusive. Did you see it?
You did. I haven't listened to it yet.
Okay, that's my new one. It's all the stuff I've done is country. This is much more faster, a little more rocky, more rockin' country. Maybe some might even call it southern rock, but I actually sing not like country. As you can tell, I am not from the country. There is no country draw in my songs. So it doesn't sound authentic when I'm singing country to country music, which is horrible because, you know, if you're singing country, you want to sound like, if you try to fake a country draw, people can see right through it. And they're like, come on, man. So this other song is like a rockin' fast country, but I'm able to sing a little bit like with my rocker voice. It's called Full Throttle. And you're more than welcome to let people listen to it too. I mean, like, I'll probably be putting it out in a couple of weeks.
All right, cool. Well, I'm glad that your wife said yes.
Me too. Me too.
After all your childhood and everything, that you've now got your own family and you're not letting them live that life that you had, you know, because that sounds like you went through quite a lot on top of your encounter and everything.
Yeah.
So congratulations with your music as well, because
Thank you.
I know how much you love it and you know what it means to you. Thank you as well for sharing all that tonight with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was I didn't expect all that, actually, because I didn't even ask you about your first encounter when we talked the other day. I just thought, oh, he'll tell us, and then when it was like, oh my God, that was
yeah, that's the encounter that's going to be on the travel channels. These Woods Are Haunted next Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. They do a great production. I liked them ever since they were Terror in the Woods. The only negative thing that I don't like about it is, as far as the production and acting, they do a great job. They could have put a little more money, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. I'm not hating, on the look of what people are seeing. The Bigfoot encounters are very, very cheesy as far as the outfits and whatnot. Some of them just clearly look like somebody has a cloak of fur draped over them, you know.
Right.
Because I mean, Jack Link's messing with Sasquatch's Bigfoot looks way more convincing than what they've used.
Right.
But the acting and production is just fantastic. I'm got a lot of anxiety about seeing it, just because I don't know how I'm going to react. It's more about, it might sound selfish. I don't know if I'm going to break down, if I'm going to go right back into reliving it. I don't know. And I think that's where the anxiety is coming from. And also the anxiety of, if they're going to keep true to my story, they're going to keep true to my encounter. I seen 2 different Bigfoot within 5 feet of them in the same evening. If they use the same one in both encounters that evening, it takes away from it.
Yeah.
It looks as if though one was there and then it came back. And that's what I'm worried about. I'm hoping that they stay true. I haven't seen the episode. I won't see it until everybody else sees it. I did, send you a little link on the 10-second, sneak peek that they have out there. But
unfortunately, these are shows, aren't they? And they're there to entertain. So even though they're taking a true account, hopefully they will just show it the way you told them. But
right,
there's always that element that they're going to want to. They want to attract people, don't they, to watch the shows? So
yeah.
But hopefully it will be. So everyone check that out on the Travel Channel. On someone's trying to ring me. This is a bit silly when I'm trying to do this. On the Travel Channel on Saturday, did you say it was at 9 p.m. Eastern? These woods are haunted. I can't watch that in the UK, so I don't know if someone can.
Oh, that sucks. I'm sorry.
Okay. Someone put it on their record it on the phone or something for me, please.
Well, do you have a Hulu?
I don't. I could probably look into it.
Because it's like I think I don't have it, but I think it's like a Netflix. I think, or maybe not. Maybe it's a different kind of streaming TV or whatnot. But it's on Hulu as well.
Okay.
My buddy told me that last he checked, it was still labeled as Terror in the Woods, though.
All right.
But it's on his Hulu. So
yeah, I don't actually watch telly anymore, so I don't. But actually, I could go around to my neighbours. I think my neighbours watched the Bigfoot expedition, Bigfoot, whatever it was, on a few weeks ago, and I nipped round there one night. So I'll try and check it out anyway. But once again, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
If you have any more encounters, let me know. If you have any unusual, I know you've actually had a lot of other stuff, but we've got over 2 hours now.
Yeah. I apologize about that. But yeah. I've had a few other things that I've forgotten about, like I had
come back on again because
absolutely
a few things I remember you telling me about that were interesting.
I think the one religious thing that happened to me would shake a normal person to their core. That
was interesting, and also your son's invisible friend,
invisible dog.
Invisible dog, Let's get you back on again, and
absolutely.
We'll do it again, and then we can share some more details.
Sure.
Thanks for everybody in the chat tonight. Thanks for the questions. Thanks to the mods. I'll be on the researchers report on Wednesday, the final night before Kerry and the team go down to Florida, where you are, Jimmie, for the expedition. So come and catch up with us there. And thanks, Jimmie. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.